Hello. I'm doing my presentation about the Israel-Palestinian conflict. The dominant and subordinate groups in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The dominant group is the Israeli Jews. They control the government, military, and most of the territory. They enforce police that limit the Palestinian sovereignty. The subordinate group is the Palestinians. They live under Israeli occupation in the West Bank or blockading Gaza. They face restricted rights and limited political autonomy. Some of the key differences between the two of them are the ethnicity. The Israelis are Jewish and the Palestinians are Arab. Religion, the Israelis are Jewish and the Palestinians are mostly Sunni Muslim with some Christians. Another difference is their language. The Israelis speak Hebrew, and the Palestinians speak Arabic. Also, territorial claims. Both groups see the land as their historic homeland, which fuels ongoing conflict. Social stratification in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Some of the factors include political control, legal status, economic inequality, military enforcement, and religious and ethnic division. The system type is mostly closed, as Palestinians face legal and social barriers preventing upward mobility. The hierarchy, number 1 is Israeli Jews. They are dominant with full rights. Number 2, Israeli Arabs. They are citizens with some discrimination. Number 3, Palestinians in the West Bank or Gaza. They have limited rights and restricted movement. And number 4 is Palestinian refugees. They are stateless with minimal rights. Some patterns of intergroup interaction in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The conflict primarily reflects segregation, conflict, and domination. The segregation includes the Israelis and Palestinians living separately with physical barriers. They have checkpoints and walls, which limits their interaction. Conflict, there's ongoing violence, military occupation, and resistance movements that define the relation. And domination. The Israel maintains political, military, and economic control over Palestine territories, restricting their autonomy. Efforts at assimilation or pluralism are minimal due to the deep-rooted tensions. Human rights violations in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Several human rights violations occur, including freedom from arbitrary detention. The Palestinians, including minors, are held without trial from administrative detention. Freedom of movement. Checkpoints, walls, and blockades restrict Palestinian travel. The right to life and security. Civilians face violence, airstrikes, and military operations. Freedom from torture and inhumane treatment. Reports of abuse in detention and during interrogations. And rights to adequate living conditions. Restricted access to water, healthcare, and basic necessities in occupied areas. These violations contribute to ongoing humanitarian concerns in the region. The economic status of Israel based on the Multidimensional Poverty Index, or MPI. Israel is classified as a high-income country with a developed economy. Consequently, it is not included in the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, or MPI, assessments, which primarily focus on low- and middle-income countries. Therefore, specific MPI data for Israel is not available. Palestine, the MPI headcount ratio. The 2017 report indicates that 24% of Palestinians are multidimensionally poor, meaning they experience multiple deprivations across health, education, and living standards. Intensity of poverty. Those in poverty face, on average, 42.4% of the weighted indicators of deprivation. Some regional disparities include the Gaza Strip. Higher poverty rate levels with significant challenges in living conditions and access to services. The West Bank has a lower incidence of poverty compared to Gaza, but is still facing notable deprivation. These findings highlight the significant economic challenges in Palestine, particularly in the Gaza Strip, emphasizing the need for targeted poverty alleviation efforts. The social movements addressing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Boycott, divestment, and sanctions, or the BDS movement. The goal is to pressure Israel to end the occupation of Palestine territories and grant equal rights to Palestinians. The key actions are calls for boycotting Israel goods, divesting from companies supporting Israel, and imposing sanctions on Israel. The social change advocated human rights for Palestinians, end to Israel military occupation, and equal rights for Palestinian citizens of Israel. The movement type is a global social movement aiming to generate international awareness and action against perceived injustice. Number 2 is the Free Gaza movement. The goal is to break the blockade on Gaza and end the isolation of the Palestinian people in the region. The key actions are organizing flotillas to deliver aid to Gaza, advocating for lifting the blockade and raising awareness of humanitarian conditions. The social change advocated is freedom of movement for Palestinians, end to the Gaza blockade, and improved humanitarian conditions. The movement type is a global social movement with an emphasis on humanitarian intervention and relief. Number 3 is the Palestinian Solidarity Movement. An example would be the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. The goal is to raise awareness about the Palestinian struggles, particularly within the Western countries. The key actions are organizing protests, educational campaigns, advocacy for policy changes, and supporting Palestinian-led initiatives. The social change advocated is support for Palestine self-determination, an end to occupation, and to end military aid to Israel. The movement type is an advocacy movement focused on policy change, human rights, and justice for Palestinians. Number 4 is the Women's March for Palestine. The goal is to highlight the specific impact of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict on Palestine women and families. Key actions are organizing marches, rallies, and campaigns focusing on the intersection of gender and the occupation. The social change advocated is the gender equality, an end to violence against women, and support for Palestinian family and community resilience. The movement type is a social justice movement, particularly focusing on gender equality and human rights. The categorization of movements. These movements particularly fit into the following categories. The global social movement, the BDS and Free Gaza movements are global in scope, aiming for international involvement and policy change. The advocacy movements, Palestinian solidarity movements in various countries focus on influencing national and international policies, such as U.S. support for Israeli policies. Social injustice movements. Movements like the Women's March for Palestine advocate for gender-specific rights within the broader human rights struggle. These social movements have sought to influence public opinion, bring global awareness to the Palestinian cause, and advocate for an end to the occupation and improve the living conditions. Thank you.